Taco. That is now the preferred moniker for critics of President Trump's trade policy. It stands for Trump always chickens out, and it's being used in reference to Trump's on-again, off-again tariffs that are increasingly being shrugged off by investors. Joining us to discuss, Brett Samuels, White House reporter here at The Hill. Hey, Brett, so in the beginning of this Trump term, there were wild market swings as a result of Trump's tariff announcements. Today, Trump doubled steel and aluminum tariffs, and markets seem to have barely flinched. Is that the taco effect?
Yeah, it sure seems like investors and traders are kind of catching on here to how Trump operates with his trade policy. They've obviously picked up on the pattern. Another factor with the steel and aluminum tariffs in particular is that they were already in place. Trump had already sort of announced these 25% across the board tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, obviously doubling them to 50%, which he did this week is certainly significant, but maybe not as out of the blue as some of his other trade threats. So, it does seem like maybe Wall Street is kind of settling into, how Trump seems to be operating here, and sort of the cycle we go through each time he sort of talks about these tariffs.
This taco label seems to really get under Trump's skin. He was asked about it at a press conference. And he said it was a nasty question. It's very important to Trump to display this image as a tough guy negotiator. What is the argument that this is all part of some coherent tariff strategy?
Yeah, certainly that is the argument from the White House that we hear time and again is, where critics and where maybe Wall Street sees Trump as, all bluster and little action and always backing down from these threats at the last minute and giving extensions or carving out loopholes for certain sectors or businesses or countries. Trump's allies, particularly in the White House, see this as sort of part of a grand master plan, that this is the master deal maker at work, that Trump is not backing off of these threats. He's actually putting on his deal maker hat and bringing other countries to the table to negotiate. So certainly you won't catch the president or his aides, admitting that maybe these things aren't thought out well in advance, or that these things are sort of just reactions to negative backlash in the markets. Certainly, their argument is that this is a president fully in control who totally knows what he's doing, and it feeds into that sort of image he's created of himself of sort of this master deal maker.
There are some big taco tests coming up. July 8th, a 90-day deal, a 90-day delay on country-specific tariffs goes into expires. The only deal so far is with the United Kingdom. It seems like progress is pretty slow on that.
Yeah, certainly, the White House at the start of that 90-day reprieve talked about 90 deals in 90 days, and they talked about these lofty goals and expectations for how they'd be able to broker these agreements. But the reality is that, complex trade agreements take months and years in some cases to fully flesh out and negotiate and come to terms on. And here we are, about 5 weeks out from that deadline when Trump set that 90-day pause. And so far, as you said, the United Kingdom is the only sort of solid trade deal in place. And then, if you want to count China, just the fact that the U.S. and China sort of lowered their tariffs on each other. But certainly it does seem like we're going to be coming right down to the wire here, where maybe there may be another deal or two announced, but certainly, as you said, it's going to be another big test when we get to that July 8th deadline, whether Trump, as he has said he will do, whether he reimposes those higher reciprocal tariffs on those other countries, or whether he backs off again and says, we're going to give it another 60, 90 days or whatever it may be to negotiate.
And then a day later, on July 9th, 50% tariffs on the European Union is set to return. Those were also delayed after Trump spoke with the president of the EU Commission. Trump going to chicken out on those?
Yeah, the EU tariffs are interesting because, that was, I think a matter of about 48 hours or so from the time that he said he was imposing these 50% tariffs on the European Union to the time when he had this phone call and said, actually, we're going to give it until July 9th. So that was a very, very quick turnaround as far as these things go. But certainly Trump has really complained frequently about the European Union. He claims that it was made for the purpose of screwing the United States on trade and the economy. So he does feel very strongly, and certainly you can't discount the possibility that he gets set off or frustrated, and that he does follow through on these tariffs in particular. But once again, the EU, this is a big trading bloc. If markets appear to be spooked or rattled, and there's sort of fears about an economic backlash to imposing tariffs, you can't really rule out the possibility that Trump will react and maybe provide another extension, or come to some kind of deal where he can say he got something out of it and call it a win.
All right, it'll be interesting to see what Trump does in the next, just a little over a month, and then how the markets react. Brett Samuels, thanks so much for your insight.
Thanks, Drew.